Good morning and welcome. It's another fairly sunny day, but it's absolutely blowing a hoolie outside. So when we go for our promenade, I can't say the actual word because the dogs understand it. Yes, we're going to have to hold on to our hats today. So today I want to speak about something that is an issue for many women when they get to their midlife, when they get to the perimenopause and postmenopause. They find that what they used to do to control their weight is no longer viable. And it does become quite an issue for many women. They don't feel in control, and I think that's one of the main points about this. So today I really want to talk about some of those key actions that you can take that will help you recover your waistline, to help manage that particular issue that occurs, and yes, change what you're doing basically. And then alongside this, these actions will also support other areas of your health and body. So it's not just about weight, this is about enabling your body to work efficiently and optimally. So today I'm going to talk about exercise and the importance of exercise in relation to this, talking about diet, not so much what we eat, really more about when we eat, and focus on a sort of more general what we eat. I want to talk about stress and sleep and all these things that interact together to help us manage our weight and particularly our waistlines. So let's talk about diet, and I want to talk about three areas here, and it's when you eat, how much you eat, and what you eat. So let's start with when. Now, in this day and age, we have food available, or food-like substances available 24/7, and I think our eating habits have become more erratic as a result. We've got busy lives, we've got family coming in and out of the house, all going off to different things at different times. We don't necessarily sit down at the same time each day and eat a meal together as maybe our ancestors did. And I think that can be a hindrance, because we then lose those particular gaps between our meals that we perhaps once had. You know, there was an argument, who said we should eat 3 meals a day? You know, perhaps we shouldn't be eating 3 meals a day, who knows? But having a gap where you're not constantly eating enables your body to do other things, and we don't want our energy to always go to digesting the food. We want it to work other systems of the body as well. So the easiest way to sort of really address this is looking at a period of time when we don't eat, a fast. You know, in the morning we break the fast with breakfast. And this overnight gap is one of the best places to do this. Now, what happens when we don't constantly eat food, and which is mostly sort of carbohydrates as well as proteins and fats? We utilize, or we prioritize utilization of glucose, which is from the carbohydrates, for our energy. And we release insulin to do this. Any excess that we don't use in the moment may be stored, and if there's more than that, we store it as fat on our body. But in those gaps, when we're not eating glucose and haven't got glucose available to utilize for energy, our body will then divert to utilizing fat, and it breaks it down and produces this energy currency called ketones. Now, this can happen particularly well at night when we're not eating. So the science, there's lots of different things on the science of fasting. There are benefits and there are deficits as well. There's all sorts of things, but we are all different. But I would say, with the experience I've had, having a break from eating really does support your body in other ways. So if you could reduce, stop eating after your evening meal and don't eat again until your breakfast, and try and see if you can get that gap to 12 hours as an aim, as your first starting point, if you're not already doing fasting, of course. And be aware that having a cup of coffee or tea with sugar in it or milk will break that fast. So you want really to be very conscious of having a pre-bed snack that will raise your blood sugar and your insulin, depending on what you're eating, of course. But you really want to try and not eat after your evening meal and leave a 12-hour gap before eating something else. And being aware of sugary drinks, alcohol, these still release sugars and can still trigger digestion to occur. Some people find that coffee with MCT oil doesn't trigger them. Other people find it does. So we're all different, and it's really just being aware. You can get glucose monitors that can test your relationship with food, your reaction to food, that you can use over a 2-month period. And when you know what triggers, you know. So they're quite good. So there are benefits to longer fasts, and what's important as well, I think, for many women, you don't always want to fast for the same amount of time as perhaps a man would do. We need to be aware of our cycle and not really fast around that period of time. But leaving that to one side for now, because there's a lot of information in that area of fasting, on a couple of days or 3 days a week, perhaps push that fast to 16 hours. So once you've got your 12-hour fast sorted, then see if you can push it to 16 hours. Now I find, for me, it's easier to eat my evening meal and leave that gap and not eat until later in the morning. And I find that works really well for me. So that's number one, because you want your body to turn over at night from burning glucose to fat, getting the ketones from your fat stores and utilising that. So that's number one. Number two with diet, I have met many women who have difficulty losing weight. They've been on numerous diets and they're very much into the calorie restriction diet. And this is still hanging on, this old practice that, yes, it works in the short term, but it doesn't work in the long term. And I've found that with many women I've worked with, I've asked them to eat more food. Basically, eat more food. We've been particular about the types of food, of course, but eat more food, because when we don't, our body thinks there might be a starvation situation going on, a famine, and it will do its best to save our lives, and it will reserve stores, and fat has more calorific value than protein or glucose. So it does hold on to that until really quite late. So eating properly also gives you the nutrients your body needs to do these practices of metabolite. Luna, please don't bark. I have the dogs with me again, of course, they're my little shadows. We need the nutrients for our bodies to work optimally and to be, well, successful in each of the systems, including being able to burn fat, including utilisation of the energy we're eating and detoxifying it as well. So we need to have the right amount of food. So starving ourselves, trying to reduce our calories, is going to be detrimental over the long run. So that's something to be aware of. Eat proper food, real food, food that you recognise from nature, and avoid all the processed foods. Then what we eat, I'm already touching on that. It's a good idea to include protein, particularly as we get to mid-years. Our protein levels, there's a fair bit of talk around increasing our protein. We do start to, our ability to break down protein can reduce as we get older. Stomach acid becomes a little weaker. We don't produce perhaps as much as we did when we were young. There's also the enzymes that go into breaking down our foods can be depleted. And if we're not eating enough, we will perhaps not bring in enough of the raw material to make all these enzymes, etc., and stomach acid to break down our food. So eating a portion of protein, fat and carbohydrate, healthy carbohydrate, not too high in simple sugars. They're the ones that break down quickly and are released into the bloodstream quickly. And just to recap on what type of thing that is, it would be things like white flour products like pasta, white bread, it could be white rice, obviously cakes, biscuits, sweets and all that sort of thing, fizzy pops. They're the ones we need to avoid and get on to more complex like fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and keeping the amount we eat. Not the old food pyramid had the grains and the whole foods, or not the whole foods, but the carbohydrates at the bottom of the period, so bread, pasta, etc. We don't want that. That's far too much. We need to push it further up the pyramid and control the amounts and have more things like leafy green vegetables on our plate and that type of thing. So getting a good balance of your foods on your plate at each meal is worth looking at. And I would say whenever you approach anything like these changes, start with one meal. Just focus on when are you going to break your fast, what are you going to have for that meal, and don't worry about lunch, don't worry about dinner. You can come to that in turn, because as busy women you're not going to be able to change everything at once and be successful. Most women can't do that. There are some who are amazing at making change, but most of us, we've got all these other things going on in our heads, we've got so much to do that we don't give ourselves the time. So let's take it one step at a time. So that's a little bit about our diet, when to eat, how much to eat, don't starve yourself, and also what to eat. Keep it fresh, whole foods as much as possible, and plan for those times actually when you know you're going to be challenged. I have a few things aside. I have quite a few nuts and seeds in the fridge. I also like a little bit of sheep's or goat's cheese, which I will grab a little cube of if I know I'm peckish and I've got a time to wait for my dinner to cook, basically. So just make a few little preparations just in case. Just started walking through the woods. I'm just coming to a clearing and I can hear the winds high, so I might just pause talking whilst I walk through this part. And there we go. Can enjoy the bird song as well. There's my girls. Right, I don't think it's too blustery here. So yes, the second action to take is exercise. And there's two issues here. Some people aren't doing any. They really could benefit from moving their bodies and getting some exercise. But I've met a lot of women who are doing back-to-back classes, back-to-back cardio classes, and with the idea, isn't that lovely? Stop, with the idea that it will burn more calories. But sadly you get that point where you can go, too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing, and it's like the bell curve where you'll get to a peak and any more is just not going to be of any benefit. And this is what's happening, and it can stress the body if it's back-to-back cardio classes, and we tend to release energy and then deposit it around the middle when it's not all used up. And what's better, what we found a lot of women have found better, is to reduce those classes, maybe take a walk instead. And as you may recall, a couple of weeks ago I spoke about walking and how it was good for fat loss, particularly moderate walking. That could help us release the subcutaneous fat, that's the outside, the fat around the outside of our bodies. But both moderate walking and fast walking also reduce the visceral fat, the fat around the organs. We need some, we don't need too much, because that's active at the end of the day. So yes, so walking can be really beneficial. So if you're not doing any exercise, I think walking is a brilliant place to start. You just need a sturdy pair of shoes and get out for 10 minutes, work up to 40 minutes, do that. You can walk daily, it's not too strenuous to do it daily, but you know, 3 or 4 times a week would be absolutely lovely. But do what you can do as you start out, and don't do it to exhaustion. But it's also, when you're doing more strenuous exercise, good to have a day's rest in between. So the second thing I think really helps women, particularly midlife, not just from a weight perspective, but also from a bone health and longevity perspective, is strength training, weight training, doing some sort of weights that will increase our muscle mass. More muscle uses more energy, so it's great to use up the stores of glucose we might be, or the excess glucose even, that we might be taking in, and also increasing our power and our strength. So those are really important. You want to be able to, being attacked by flies, you want to be able to tie your own laces. You want to be able to take the lid off a jam jar. Oh my goodness, I couldn't even get into a packet of crumpets several years ago. Couldn't even burst the packet open. So yes, it's really useful for daily life. It's a little noisy here. I'll just go around the corner. We're going to go across a little bridge, a little stone bridge. Let's just turn you around so you can see. There we go. This is a little stone bridge, and we've got bollards to stop vehicles coming through, and then into the woodland. I love this bit. So yes, exercise, you don't want to do too much. So ease back on those classes if you're doing 3 back-to-back cardio type classes, and include a day's rest as well. You can walk, that's fine. And if you're not doing anything, get out walking, because there's science to show that it helps. And actually, one thing I haven't looked into yet, but is out there on the internet quite commonly, is the wearing of weighted vests when you walk. I've seen various YouTubers doing that. A lady called Charlene, she's worth catching up with actually. She's an American, was or is an exercise instructor, has been on prestigious exercise videos, and when she hit perimenopause, she found the weight, stubborn weight, difficult to shift, and she's a fit lady, looks fabulous. So weighted vests are a good idea. If you don't have a weighted vest, I don't, a rucksack might help. So I don't particularly want to lose weight. I haven't got an issue with weight around the middle. I am bigger than I was when I was young, but I'm absolutely comfortable with where I am. I tend to be on the lower side when it comes to BMI, if that means anything. So yeah, walking the dogs for me is multifunctional. I love it. So exercise is another action to consider. So the next action is sleep. So we need to give sleep a little bit of focus. There's a few things that go on here. I know busy women tend not to prioritise sleep, and it really is an important aspect to all areas of our health. But it's quite clear that when we have going through the perimenopause and menopause, the lower levels of estrogen and progesterone can impact our sleep. It can also negatively impact our ability to lose weight, because it can increase insulin resistance. So we've got a few things going on here. And we know as well, when we're not well rested, if we don't have enough sleep or a good night's sleep, we're more likely to reach for something that's going to boost us in the way of a sugary food or some sort of stimulant. So these are things that we really want to try and avoid. So sleep should be prioritised, and I think they find 8 hours is like the sweet spot, but between 7 and 9 hours for most people is what they require. So giving focus to your sleep can help you lose weight. Lack of sleep increases weight, and that's actually for anybody, not just during perimenopause, so it's worth considering. Now the final consideration, the final action, is taking some notice of your stress levels. Stress, long-term stress, short-term stress is fine. We need a little bit of, it can help us adapt. But long-term stress can increase levels of cortisol for too long. And this can actually impact our weight, and particularly around the middle. We can put down weight around the middle. It uses a lot of nutrients, and if we're not eating properly, we can become nutrient depleted and other systems of the body won't work so well, and the knock-on effect is it could be in any system of the body. Basically, it could be your sleep, it could be the fact you feel fatigued and you don't feel like doing your exercise. So taking notice of stress is really important, and I think also it's recognizing what kind of stress you're under. Are you doing too much? Is it the amount? Is it the actual physical stress? Are you putting too much stress on your body, as you would if you're doing too much exercise, for instance, or if you break a leg? That's physical stress. But there are stresses that we can manage, and there are stresses that are outside of our control. And I think it's good to recognise those as well and find a way to let go. Very much easier said than done, it's got to be said. Now, a number of years ago, this is something I could do something about. I was being bullied at work, and I was bringing that stress home with me. I couldn't do much about the bullying other than change my attitude towards it. And it did actually manifest in being impeded at work. But on the other hand of things, I could have perhaps dealt with it differently emotionally. And one thing I decided to do was put all those thoughts in a bag, an imaginary bag, and leave them at the gatepost when I drove in the drive on the way home. And then I expanded that to leaving those thoughts and worries in a bag, imaginary bag, at the gatepost at work. So I didn't even take them home on the journey. And I did that over a 2-week period, and it worked really well for me. So at work, I did feel stressed, didn't know what was going to happen. Would I be stabbed in the back by this person? Blah, blah, blah. But at home, I could let it go. And that was really powerful for me. It really reduced that consistent stress that I was feeling. So working out what you can impact and what you really need to try and let go of. Stressing yourself over something that's not yet happened, for instance. Learning how to not do that. And it's difficult. And learning these techniques like breathing, which I mentioned a few weeks ago. So stress can impact our body weight. It can increase it if it's consistently high with stress levels. It can also deplete our nutrient levels in our body. So learning how to deal with that is useful as well. So there we have it, 4 actions: exercise, diet, 3 sections in diet, our sleep and our stress, and all of these interlink. If we're stressed, we choose poor foods. If we sleep poorly, we choose poor foods often. And we don't necessarily exercise if we're feeling tired. And if we don't eat the right foods, we might not sleep well. We might eat too close to bedtime. So pulling it all together, tackling it step at a time, one step at a time, is really the way to go about this. So I'm just watching a feather just floated down. Little birds come out to see the feather. Oh, I love it here. Such a lot of wildlife. Anyway, I hope this has been useful for you, and thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.